Cloud.
Okay, cool.
Okay. All right. Thank you, everybody, for joining. This is the January meeting of ANC3C's Safe, Sustainable, and Equitable Transportation Committee meeting. I am Adam Prinzo, the Commissioner for 3CO2 and the co-chair of this committee. I don't see any of my other co-chairs on this call, so we will move past introducing them. We have a very interesting agenda today. We did extend an invitation to DDOT. However, this morning they told us that they will not be able to attend, but to send them their concerns, to send them our concerns. So that is what we will be doing. So I am going to take the discussion on the Connecticut Avenue Safety Improvement Plan off the agenda. We can mention the 29th Street sidewalk plan in Woodley Park, but if they're not here, they can't really answer questions about it. And their response for the safe routes to school is that they have already made their decision, but we are going to hear from the community on it and see if we can maybe figure something out on that end. And so with that, I'm going to start with the DDOT discussion for safe routes to school. There were two safe routes to schools implemented in 3C this year, one at Eaton Elementary on 33rd Place, which I don't see anybody from
I see Doug Ringel on the call.
Doug. Okay. Um, so essentially what happened is that they came in and made 33rd Place a one way. Um, I think they did some other safety improvements too. However, there was very to little notice given. And then I will say the second one that happened at Oyster-Adams Elementary School on Calvert Street, which is in my SMD. I was aware that a Safe Routes to School program was being undertaken. Nobody informed me that the changes and the implementation of the program of the what they found happened. So I woke up one day and there was a new bike lane that was not installed correctly to begin with, but that just appeared. So we're going to hear from the community on that. I think maybe at some point we can revisit Safe Routes to School. It is a very important program. I'm very much a supporter of the Safe Routes to School program, but it would be nice if they told us.
Sorry, I
Oh,
don't under.
Siri doesn't understand it either. Would be nice if they gave us a little bit of notice, so this way we could tell our constituents, like, hey, you're getting a new sign that says it's a one way, and they don't have to wake up one morning and find it. So with that, I think I listed, which one did I list first? I listed Oyster-Adams first. So I see some people here from the Woodland Normanstone Community Association, Neighborhood Association. I know you have a screen that you want to share with us.
Am I?
So who are you going to share that?
Yes, Amy.
Marianne?
Amy will. Hi.
Amy? Janelle, can I make her a co-host? No. Janelle, can you make Amy a co-host so she can share her screen? All
Oh,
right, Amy, be good to go.
hold on.
Okay.
Okay. Okay, cool.
Okay. Did that work?
Sure did.
Yes.
Super.
Are you gonna make it bigger though?
Yes.
Okay. So I was like, there is no way I'm gonna see that.
No. I'm sorry. I'm Amy Weinstein. I'm the Vice President of the Woodland Normanstown Neighborhood Association, WNNA, and with us also tonight is Marianne Steiner. She's the president. What you see in front of you, I'll try to be as quick as possible because I know you have quite an agenda. What you see in front of you is a map with the red circle being the 350-foot radius around the Oyster School. And the hatched area is the boundary of our neighborhood association. We represent about 95% of the families that live in our neighborhood. We're a very strong community association. And if you look at the streets underneath the hatching, the diagonal hatching, you see that most of them are curved. And that's because there was an act of Congress in 1910 that exempted our particular community from the orthogonal street grid of Washington, D.C. So we actually have an act of Congress that created our intersections and the way they meet at curves. So just as a point of introduction. So we, of course, didn't have any notice about what we were going to wake up one morning and see what was in our front yards. We did finally receive from Matt Fruman's office a copy of the notice of intent document. And here's the page that talks about what they did in our neighborhood. And when I saw this, I thought, oh, well, if the ANC did get this, no wonder we didn't hear from them, because who could understand what this is? It's so incomprehensible as a diagram. And I speak with 40 years of experience as an urban designer, designing new streets in Washington, D.C., working with traffic engineers. And this document here that was submitted to you is almost impossible to read. And it also is misleading. It talked about just a small number of flex posts on each approach, and the fact that they highlighted in the diagram there the affected areas with newly proposed safety devices emphasized for clarity, but there is no clarity in this. So anyway, so we fully understand maybe why we didn't hear from our ANC on this. What I've done is I took that image and I blew it up, and for clarity, I tried to make it a little clearer. And what we want to talk about today are two of the areas that we're very concerned about. There are others, but I don't want to take up the whole meeting. One is where McGill Terrace comes down to 29th Street, kind of across from the school. And the other one is where Woodland Drive used to drive by 29th Street on its way back down the hill. And so we just want to kind of focus on those two areas. And we'll start with the Woodland Drive intersection there, which is now blown up even more. So what you're looking at, the white reflective pickets that they installed are the red dots. I put them on top of the black dots that the original diagram had. The black striped, diagonal striped are the highly reflective white lines on the pavement that they installed. And I've added then the blue cars. Car number one on the left side would be a car driving down Woodland Drive and trying to continue to drive on Woodland Drive down to the bottom of the hill. Car number two is where car number one wants to get to in order to continue driving as they pass through the intersection. The yellow is a kind of a cone of vision for the driver, of what the driver is seeing in their acute visual center as they're trying to navigate to see where to drive and how to miss pedestrians and get where they need to get. And this little blue dot right here is a pedestrian in the crosswalk. This was an existing crosswalk, by the way. So what this looks like in reality is this. And this is not at night when those reflective things are like blinding in your headlights. This is just, in the afternoon. And this is from the car in position number one, trying to continue through this intersection onto Woodland Drive and continue driving. And as you can see, you can't see where to drive over there. You can't see where the street is supposed to be because of the curved lines of the pickets and the way they overlap each other from one group to the next. It's like total chaos. It's very distracting. It's very unsafe. It makes it very hard for drivers to see where they're going, which pulls their attention away from any potential pedestrian in the crosswalk. The other intersection is down at the bottom of McGill Street. And now we put a car over in front of the school, number one here. And this is a car coming home in the evening, say from Connecticut Avenue, wants to make a left turn onto McGill to go home. And their field cone of vision, as they're looking ahead to see where they're going to be driving, is seen in yellow. And look at the number of pickets and how you're looking through fields of pickets to other pickets. It's a non-comprehensible geometry. And the pedestrian here is just kind of lost amidst all the cacophony of pickets. And this looks like this from that number one car position. You can't see where you're supposed to drive because all you see are pickets in the front of you, kind of higgledy-piggledy with no discernible order. I've been reading up on the pickets for traffic safety, and they said that they work very well when they're in a linear straight line, like along a bike lane. They work really well. I don't think they work well when you're trying to put them out and array them in a large field of vision. I just don't think they work. So then we thought, whoop, sorry. Then we thought, well, gee, we didn't know this area was so unsafe for pedestrians. Let's go take a look. So we went into the DC GIS map system. The Vision Zero traffic website has this. And we went back, I think the traffic consultants who did the Oyster-Adams School project looked back 4 years. We looked back 7 years in order to find one incident in our neighborhood. The red area is the two areas we just looked at. In the last 7 years, there was not one traffic accident in where all those pickets are, not one. There was one 7 years ago, a minor pedestrian injury where the blue circle is outside the area of the school area, kind of in the middle of Woodland Drive. It's not an area where people typically cross the street. I'm guessing it could have been someone getting into their parked car that was parallel parked, and another car came by maybe and tapped them. But there was a minor pedestrian injury 7 years ago. So we look at the degradation of our community and we look at, is it really necessary? And you try to weigh it, and you have to, I think, really question it. So to summarize, we had no opportunity to provide input but during the planning stage, that we feel the installation is excessive, intrusive on low traffic, quiet neighborhood streets. We have no problem with what they did on Cleveland and right at the school. We think that's great. It's our streets that we're concerned about. And we think the installation has introduced new concerns for driver and pedestrian safety. We recognize that school safety is of paramount importance. However, this excessive intrusion onto our quiet single-family neighborhood streets is a visual degradation of our community environment, as well as a new safety concern where safety was not a previous problem. That's our presentation tonight. I will stop share.
Okay. Does anybody have any questions? Godwin.
Thanks for the presentation. Actually, you've sent along some materials before, but this is a very clear presentation of your concerns. So thanks for that. It's quite well done. So I guess I have two questions. One is so let me ask, well, three questions. How about this? Number one, can you describe what your engagement has been? I've seen some email traffic back and forth between Woodland Normanstone folks and DDOT, and I think you've been trying to invite them to come look at it. Can you tell me what that's been? Let me just get all my questions out, and then you can answer them quickly. The second one is the solution you were proposing to remove the sticks, to remove and I think they've sort of teed off or daylighted some of the intersections. Are you want that removed as well, or not, or is there a different thing? And then you said that the sticks are not a good solution in this sort of circumstance. Is there an alternative, or is there, do you have an idea for a better alternative, or tell me what you think about that? All right, stop. So three questions.
Okay. The first one, yes, we reached out to the DDOT Ward 3 community person. And we were told, oh, that's a school safety project, and forget about it. We can't do anything about it. So then we reached out to Matt Fruman's office and talked to someone there who evidently she came out and took some photographs and took it back. And it's very hard to photograph this. I put the oval of your acute vision in order to understand what it really looks like. A camera collects it all, and you don't get the real sense of it. But so her photographs weren't very compelling, I guess. And she got back to us and said, no, they said they're not going to do anything about it. So we're frustrated. We're prepared to go as high up the chain as we need to get attention. Which could mean going to the council. I think Charles Allen oversees the committee that got kind of angry at DDOT for not instituting the school safety projects, whereupon they instituted it in a way that's not very community friendly.
And then what the relief you're seeking or the
Yes,
changes you want?
okay. On Woodland, we would like all the stripes off the road except keep the existing crosswalk, which worked great, and take all the pickets off. At McGill, we think all the pickets should go away. We think that personally, I think there's a better geometrical solution of other white lines that would help to resolve things. I'd love to sit down in a design session with DDOT and come up with a better way to handle it. But I think the pickets have to go because of the array of them, and you're looking across it, they just don't work. And I think, maybe there's a speed bump, maybe there are other options. Again, there have been no accidents there on McGill. And the third question.
No, that was it.
That was it. Okay, good. Thanks.
Thanks.
Yeah, I would also add that my echo.
You have two devices on?
I thought I turned them off. Oh, I do. Sorry. Yeah, I couldn't. Okay, hi. Yeah, Adam, when you opened the meeting, I think you said you echoed or you represented what all we've heard back, which is it's school safety, hands off, done deal. Nobody can talk about anything. Don't think about it. Don't look at it. Just go away. And that doesn't make any sense, right? Because whoever imagined this solution did not take into account any of the experience on these roads. These are quiet roads, and they have this strategy to square off curved roads. So there's all these intrusive lines and pickets and things that don't make any, as Amy said, your brain doesn't process them properly because they're putting intrusive imagery in the middle of curved roads. It's hard to explain, I understand they have some kind of strategy about square intersections, but one has to take into account existing conditions and understand the different use cases, drivers, walkers, etc. And the crosswalks are clearly marked. So to the extent that they feel they need traffic calming in a calm traffic area, I think to your point, to Amy's point, do they need speed bumps? They say, no, there's not enough traffic for speed bumps. Then why is all this stuff there? They haven't been willing to have a conversation. Gwen, you've been copied on just about everything. And that's part of the frustration. We didn't know we missed an NOI. We got it. Okay, fine. But like you said, other people didn't get an NOI and woke up to one-way signs. So, we can't speak to that, but we can speak to the fact that this stuff rose up one day out of the street and is extremely disturbing. We're actually representing a lot of voices that we have heard from who are apoplectic about this.
Marianne,
yeah.
Marianne, I just want to clarify, we received the NOI like 2 weeks ago, not before, after the.
Yeah, that's what I mean. Yeah. They sent the person from Matt Fruman's office sent it as a response from DDOT saying, you got this. We told you about it, or not. We didn't get it, but ANC got it. So that was, so we never saw it beforehand, and I'm not sure who among you actually saw it, or to Amy's point, could have understood it if you saw it.
Well, I will say it's my SMD and I did not see it, but I did see a sign that went up a couple days before, like a little political lawn sign that says safe routes to school, changes coming soon, and it went up on a Thursday and on a Tuesday, and the changes happened on a Wednesday or a Thursday, or there was it was a very short delay. I was aware that safe routes to school, that they were looking at Oyster, but I never got an NOI on any traffic changes. But I will turn it to Janelle.
well, first, I forget if the NOI process is different for safe routes to school
Yes.
installations or not. No,
Yes.
it's
I
not.
was, I was told that an NOI for safe routes doesn't require as long of a comment period as
Okay.
a regular. And they can also issue an NOI after the fact, which
Okay. So it is a little different.
it is a little different, yeah.
Okay. The other things I wanted to point out was I believe like the ideal solution to daylighting these intersections is to do concrete bump outs instead of those flex posts. It's just that there's more cost obviously involved with putting permanent concrete infrastructure in versus these flex post solutions. The idea being, like you guys keep telling me or keep saying it's a calm street, but it's a curved street. And when people think it's a calm traffic street, they will not slow down to take that turn. They will just whoosh and like that's where bad things happen. And I will never understand like when people say there were no traffic incidents here, nobody died. Like we should not be looking for a body count before we improve like unsafe infrastructure or potentially unsafe infrastructure. So knowing that cars are one a hell of a lot higher than they were before and a hell of a lot heavier. So anybody going at speed that clips a pedestrian, that injury is significantly more, and there are multiple studies and multiple statistics on this, than it was 10, 15, 20 years ago, because it's getting you at your shoulder and head, and that's me as an adult, not a child. A child's going straight under that car, and they're not coming back without significant injury. And that's what the Safe Routes to School program is meant to prevent. And I think that you're going to really have a tough time convincing Charles Allen otherwise. I know that there's another intersection, Rick, I think it's in your SMD area. That's another one that is in a relatively calm area that I believe even has a four-way stop at this corner. And we kept getting these complaints from people who were um, hurting their tires, tire damage. And it's because they were taking the turn, they weren't stopping at the stop sign, and they were leaving the roadway, which by the way is illegal, and clipping a sewer grate
Yeah,
where the metal corner of the sewer
the edge of
grate
the catch basin. Yeah.
was slightly ajar from because it's again on a curve. So they weren't slowing down. They were essentially losing control of their vehicle. And then like, but that's the kind of level of infrastructure where people need to slow down but they need to be like physically convinced to do it. I don't agree that flex posts aren't the best solution. I agree they're ugly, but if people don't slow down, like by the physical uh, being influenced that way, drivers are going to drive as fast as they want to drive, as fast as feel safe driving, and that's the psychological fact of the matter.
Are
And that's
you
fortunate.
saying that on Woodland Drive, people are driving fast there? Because I don't see it. Or are
I'm
you just saying in general?
in general, and generally that the curve issue is like people just, I'm not saying every driver, obviously. There are some responsible ones, I hope. But that's like the thinking that,
Right.
is driving a lot of these.
So
Uh,
Janelle, maybe, I mean, we would love you to come walk through the area we're talking about. There's stop signs everywhere, there's stoplights everywhere. We actually begged them for speed bumps that they wouldn't put in. We're not talking about a curved highway. We're not talking about Rock Creek Parkway. We're talking about streets where there's kids and families, and we live there, right? So we would love you to help us put this in the right perspective, if you're willing, because in general, there are a lot of these considerations, and we are all parents and we all want to protect the kids. We know where the school traffic is, we know where it isn't. I live on McGill. I walk every morning at school drop-off time. I know where it's coming from. I know where the cars are coming from. No one looked at this area in the particular circumstances of this area, the use cases of this area. It's just a generic solution. And yes, there were other curbs along Calvert where 3 residents, including my husband, busted a tire because they put a new granite curve in with no lighting, and they finally have signed it and everything. But when they first put it in, it was a problem. We're not complaining about that. We understand that's the heavy traffic route along Calvert. But we would really welcome you to see the circumstances here and have the opportunity to sit down with the people, right people, who are willing to consider that there are design options for this type of situation that may work for everyone.
Godwin asked this question, but the design options you guys seem to be leaning towards is just a paint solution?
Well, I think it's premature to talk about options because, it's complicated, it's technical, as you know, and it depends on what their concern is. I mean, I think Woodland Drive, it all just be taken apart away because I think people, you do see the crosswalk, and even if you're going fast, you see that crosswalk. It's so loud and clear until they messed up the visual array with the pickets. I think that should all go away. They should get the striping off the street. I think McGill, you're absolutely right, Janelle, that it's a cheap way to try to change the roadbed, and because you don't have enough money to put in curbs, and that's what these pickets are. And I just don't think that it needed to be as aggressively applied, the lines on the street at the bottom of McGill, and I think the pickets need to go. But something could be done, and speed bumps would be a good possibility in our neighborhood. We'd much rather have those because they force traffic to slow down.
I have a
The
question.
other thing that Rick, I'm sorry, a number of the homes right on 29th where all these pickets they've been forced to make these very sharp turns in and out of their driveways. And the solution for them, putting in any kind of additional curbing would make it worse for them. So there are, I think to Amy's point, there's very specific considerations along this one, whatever, I think we think it's about a 300-foot stretch that has 45 pickets that can be reimagined to address whatever problems they're trying to solve in a way that also allows people to live comfortably and drive in and out comfortably. Rick, I'm sorry.
Rick, before I go to you, my question, the street that you're talking about, is it hilly?
Not at all.
McGill, well, it's not steeply hilly.
Well, I know McGill because I walk my dog in McGill,
Oh,
but
okay. And Woodland, there's an incline, but it's not steep. It's
Okay.
pretty flat.
But that one stretch, there's hardly any.
Pretty flat.
Right?
Yeah.
Okay. I know from my limited knowledge of transportation at DDOT is that they tend not to put speed bumps on non-flat streets because going over a speed bump, going down a hill is not really great.
Also, the curve issue
The
is
curve issue, correct.
yeah, the curvy streets they won't do unless there's like a straightaway of
Right.
X, Y feet.
Because it could end up doing a lot of damage to the car, was my understanding. Like more so hill wise.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. But I just don't think that Woodland intersection was broken, that it needed to be fixed. I mean,
Rick?
Well, that was kind of my question, and I'll try to be quick because I know there are other things on the agenda. I mean, too often the situation we face is that DDOT doesn't respond to pleas over an obvious problem, but here it's a little unclear to me what the problem is that they're trying to solve with this because, I was looking at the map and, while I do see that it's possible to use Woodland coming off of Garfield effectively to bypass Cleveland Avenue if cut through traffic is looking for another route, it's gotta turn and go back to Calvert Street at at the intersection here where they've put in the posts and at 29th Street. And while DDOT, I know, has been looking at intersections that are, designed in such a way that it's effectively like a slip lane so that traffic takes a curve pretty quickly. If it wanted to continue on to Woodland Drive, it's hard to see non-local traffic doing that because it's going to have to loop back somehow to Calvert. So if that's the case, I just don't really understand all the poles to create what's essentially a bump out where the two parts of Woodland Drive come together. And in fact, in looking at your diagrams or the photos, Ms. Weinstein, um, it seems that if their objective was to, narrow the crosswalk across Woodland Drive, even the poles as, they're shown in your photo don't really do that. So just again, citing safe routes to school doesn't really explain what the specific problem is they're trying to solve at that three-way intersection.
Right. Creating a small island in the middle of that crosswalk would cut the island. And if you could build it with curbs, it wouldn't be a danger. And then the traffic, there are lots of solutions here besides what they tried.
Um, I do want to bring in the 33rd place people just because we have a packed agenda and I want to move it along. Doug.
Yeah, hi. Thanks for holding this meeting, and I'll be quick. Um, I don't have a PowerPoint. That was beautiful, Amy, by the way. Um, so the just a bit of background. I live on 33rd Place, directly across the street from John Eaton. In fact, I'm looking at it right now, right above my computer. I can see it. We've lived here 25 years. Um, we sent three kids to the school, so we had kids in the school for 11 years. Very familiar with what goes on at the school for drop off and pickup on a daily basis, and have witnessed it personally firsthand for 25 years. We've had a really good working relationship with the school when they've had issues. Um, I'm sure they did a big renovation a few years back. And when that came up for proposal, there were meetings at the school and engagement with the neighbors. The original proposal was horrible. I don't know if any of you had a chance to see it. They were going to put up a giant structure that wasn't attractive and took away playground space. And in any event, the neighbors got involved and had the help of Mary Che's office, and through that effort ended up with a beautiful renovation. Hopefully you've had a chance to see it inside. Great school. But that only came about because of the engagement of the neighbors with the school. Because if the neighbors hadn't been involved, we would have had a much worse outcome. And there have been various times over the 25 years where other sorts of issues have come up where they've engaged the neighbors, which is why it was surprising this time to step outside and see the roads being painted and new signs being put up with absolutely no notice to the neighbors. It, it, uh, Aside from it, not feeling like you're being worked with in the same way, there really was no explanation as to why this was being done. But what was done was what used to be two-way streets on the Lowell block and the 33rd Place block that go along the sides of John Eaton. They were being converted to one way, which wasn't clear initially. Initially, they just started painting lines on the streets, and then later they put up the signs. It was difficult to get the information at first. But in any event, once we sort of figured out what they were doing, the neighbors started to try to seek information and figure out why this was done and what can be done about it. Because what the effect is it's a 365 day a year, 24-hour a day change to the way the people in blocks of 33rd Place and a block of Lowell access their homes. Instead of having access through Lowell and Macomb, now everybody who lives along these 3 blocks have to go onto Macomb Street, which isn't the best place we want to be routing additional traffic to in the first place. It's probably one of the worst streets traffic wise that we have in our neighborhood. And the effect is to add more traffic to that, is a downside. So anyway, in digging back through it, it turns out that the Safe Routes to School proposal from the people who put the proposal together after studying the situation recommended only that the traffic patterns be changed during the school hours, not 24 hours a day, not 365 days a year. But DDOT went beyond that and made it full time. And so we've tried as a group of neighbors to try to at least be heard and have someone at DDOT or whoever the powers are at DDOT, consider and then, see what the best solution is. So we've tried to be heard. So we had a meeting and Rick was there with a representative from the mayor's office, and we showed her the area, and she seemed receptive to the neighbors' concerns. And but once DDOT got involved, they were not really receptive to changing. Their view being that they don't do part-time one-ways, and that may be true, but that's sort of where they drew the line. Is if we're going to do one way, it's going to be full-time. But there are other things that you can do, which is instead of being one way, just put the do not enter sign at the Lowell and 34th Street intersection that says do not enter, school days during these hours. That effectively stops that traffic from coming in, which was the concern in the first place. Anyway, DDOT saw it as a done deal. I mean, it's already painted, signs are up, and we've not really gotten any traction. What would be nice would be to have a meeting like we've had at the school in the past with stakeholders from the neighborhood and from the school and DDOT present, and have it all, laid out, and then come up with the best proposal. So,
Adam, if
I think if I'm leaving anything out there, I think I've got it all. Yeah.
So, Rick, before I turn to you, I just want to move this along quickly because we have a lot. But go ahead, Rick.
Yeah, so I got involved particularly when there was no commissioner for the immediate district. And this is one of those situations where, John Eaton itself was comfortable with the original plan and, feels that a solution like Doug Ringel has outlined would both satisfy the school safety needs. And remember, the neighbors who sent their kids there, observe what the safety challenges are, 365 days a year, either when the school is in session or when it's not. So here's a potential path where the school and the neighbors can align and work out a plan as they've done in the past. The fact is, there are instances in DC where there are time-bound one-way streets. Canal Road comes to mind. But as Doug Ringel's pointed out, there are solutions that achieve the same effect, like time-bound do not enter signs. Again, one goes along Western Avenue at AU Park, and all the streets have signs like that, and by and large, drivers respect them. I think also there were issues with some parking restrictions put on the opposite side of 33rd Place where DDOT went beyond what the school's needs were. And, the school, from what I understand, is amenable to shorter, less restrictive hours. But the fact is there's a solution here on both counts if DDOT would only engage, and they haven't, which is too bad. I mean, I've talked to Trish Berman, who works at the school, and from their perspective, they want a solution that is simple and straightforward and easy to understand so that parents and other drivers comply. But it seems to be that there could be one.
Janelle.
Yeah, a couple of questions, I guess. This is just like one block that turned one way, or is it one and a half, two?
2 blocks. It's
What?
it's 33rd Place between Macomb and Lowell. So now it's one way southbound only from Macomb to Lowell. And then the Lowell block between 33rd and 34th is now one way headed
Okay.
westbound. Yeah.
Okay, thanks for the refresher. I remember I looked at this a few months ago and don't memorize like every single map I've ever seen. My other thing about timing and changing uh directional things of street is like that is inherently dangerous in my mind. Like we saw, like for example, it's like when school's in session. Well, if I'm a tourist, I don't know when DCPS is in session or not. Like, is this one way? Is it not? And like that can be incredibly problematic. And I know with the Connecticut Avenue reversible lane, it was the reversible lane is cool, except um or on weekdays, work days, whatever, not on holidays. Well, there were some holidays that DC has that the federal government doesn't have. So that again is confusing to like people who aren't familiar with a holiday calendar, which is weird to consult before you go drive on a road. Um, so I could just see like a logical problem and like again with technologies and stuff, people are distracted drivers, like trying to like process that kind of signage and like what time is it, like what day is it, stuff just can lead to uh, accidents because again it's confusing, and by accidents I genuinely mean accidents and crashes that are the result of just like confusing signage. And we have so much signage in DC. Like I work on Connecticut and L, and there's like a pole that is like just littered with like conflicting messages that as a pedestrian standing there stationary, not operating a motor vehicle, I'm still confused as to what I'm supposed to do at what time and when and where. So, I mean, I get your point, but I also like as a larger like just consumer of information while driving a car, um, I I get also like the challenges there and the dangers that are inherent in that.
I don't know
Well,
what.
I guess what I would say to that is I'm sure that's the case probably in some places, that maybe it's not the best idea to try to have a restricted do not enter sign that's restricted to certain hours. Um, but as a practical matter here, they have um, they have a guard there and they have put up a barricade, and no one's really going to come in there when that's there anyway. They put up the barricade during drop off and pickup. And when the cars are flowing, it's not really that you can't really turn in there anyway, especially with the barricade. So it can be implemented, and it can be implemented safely. So it's not like a generic question of whether every and all instance of and do not enter would work. In this case, I think we have evidence that it would. But that's, that would be nice to be fleshed out in a meeting that had the stakeholders present.
I would just add too that, Commissioner Pagets, I take your point that DC seems to have, a proliferation of lots of traffic signs and a cacophony, some of which are not necessary. Here there are new signs which, now say one way. Um, I can't speak for Mr. Ringel or the neighbors on this point, but my sense is if do not enter during school days was not transparent enough to drivers, something less restrictive like do not enter Monday through Friday is still a lot less restrictive because it, opens up other traffic movements in the evening and weekends. And, again, there are many, many intersections where DDOT has, signed them for do not enter Monday through Friday during certain bands of hours, morning rush hour, evening rush hour, and there seems to be compliance. And then finally, the school speed limits on 34th Street, much as drivers drive too fast generally, but those don't specify when the school days are. So, DDOT uses these temporal restrictions all the time.
Okay. Elizabeth, you're going to be the last person because we really have to move it along. You're muted.
Super fast to say that the school does have evening activities and the playgrounds are open during the weekends for anybody. And so predictable traffic around the school seems to serve the greatest safety of children. I fully understand exactly what Mr. Ringel is saying, but that school is not an 8 to 3, 5 day a week operation. Those playgrounds are open during the summer. They're open all of the time. And children do walk around that neighborhood. So
I can just respond to that one point real quick. Is what a lot of times happens is those kids walk over to Macomb Street Playground and rerouting additional traffic onto Macomb Street and that 34th and Macomb Street intersection that doesn't need to be there actually could result in increased safety risk. And that's something that also can be fleshed out in an open meeting with stakeholders involved.
Okay. I'm going to end this now. What I'm going to do is I'm going to reach back out to, I know, Doug, you were dealing with Kendall. Kendall has moved on to a different role, but I am going to reach out to her, not new since he was there, but Owen, and see if they have gotten any new information from DDOT. And I will reach out to Owen for you, Amy and Marianne, and see if mayor's office can set up a meeting. I would like to think that Adam and ANC3C has the power to force DDOT to come to a meeting, but we do not. So I will reach out to them though and see if we can get something scheduled for you as well.
Great.
Terrific. Thank you.
Great. Wonderful. Thank you.
With that, I am going to move the third item on our agenda up because I just feel like that's what most people are here to talk about. And then we'll talk about the 29th Street sidewalk. That should not be a very long discussion. The next issue is just general pedestrian safety in ANC3C, and I want to use this to talk about 34th Street and Reno Road. I see Commissioner Bowers is here from ANC3A. He was on a bunch of emails this weekend with all of us. There was an incident last month where a child, and we were joined by the child's mother, was struck on his way to school by a car. I believe the driver did not stop, which is even more disturbing. As everybody on this call should know, this ANC has been very active on the 34th Street issue. We, former Commissioner Siddiqui and Commissioner Nash, sent a resolution, a very strong resolution with many, 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 many pages of citations alone, with all the reasons why Reno Road is not safe and has not been safe. And that was in October of 2023. It must be three.
Correct.
He was
That's
not
correct.
here last
Yeah.
year. On top of that, in my research for this meeting, ANC3A, sorry, 3E, which is the Tenleytown area, I believe. They passed a resolution not much longer after we did, citing their own concerns with Reno Road up in their ANC, as well as referencing our resolution to DDOT, basically saying like, "Hey, can we get an answer on this?" And as recently as September of last year, 2025, ANC3F, which is Van Ness and Forest Hills, passed. They didn't pass a resolution. My apologies. They issued a direct expense to a parent of another child who was struck on their way to school on Reno and Warren Street. They issued a direct expense for that parent to purchase See Me flags um, for that intersection. So I'm gonna drop a letter in the chat. I just have to copy it. That we are proposing for our sorry, I need to send the wrong chat. Send for our January meeting. The letter basically outlines what happened in December, cites all of the previous resolutions. I didn't go as far as to list all the meetings that we've discussed Reno Road at because there was quite frankly too many. So I listed our resolution 3E and 3F's direct expense. And we asked DDOT to answer just four simple questions. So I would like to open this discussion up because I know a lot of people have a lot of feelings about it. So if you are here and you'd like to say something, please either unmute, raise your hand. No.
So hi, Bob Serrano. I'm the father of the child who was struck at crossing Porter on 34th Street. My wife is also on here, Neha. So we've also been at it for a while on a safe route to school. Both of our kids go to WIS, the Treguarren campus. We're on Roland Place, and so it's about a 10-minute walk. They walk right down 34th Street, take a left on Macomb, and they're there. I think anybody from DDOT who just like drives along 34th Street, especially the stretch that we're most familiar with, like would say between Macomb and probably Quebec, Rodman. The intersection my son was struck at has signs all over it that says a child was struck here. I can say also there should be signs. The next block up, one of my son's friends was hit a month before he was, Ordway and 34th Street, and my son saw it, and I stayed with him and his friend when the mom came. Fortunately, that driver did not drive off. We have See Me flags up and down. There are signs up and down that stretch that say protect our kids. We have a very specific set of requests that we're happy to circulate. I think the first one, which should be really, really, really easy. I know we talked about signage earlier, but no right on red. The city made a big stance on this a year ago. Porter, turning from Porter westbound onto 34th Street does not have no right on red. I have no idea why. To me, that is a very obvious solution. One of the solutions here. There are no right on reds all over the city. Why they didn't choose that intersection? If that sign had been in place and the driver had honored it, my son wouldn't have gotten hit. We don't need to talk about the fact that they drove off and didn't even see if he was okay. But there's a real problem. My wife and I walk our dogs. We walk the kids all the time. I think anybody that lives on that stretch of 34th Street, probably on a weekly, certainly a monthly basis, has probably almost gotten hit like multiple times in a crosswalk with a walk signal. The last time we spoke with DDOT, this was a couple of years ago. They did put a hawk signal on Rodman crossing 34th Street, which we use all the time. I can tell you it doesn't really work. We have, people driving full speed. They don't even care that in the middle of the night when the lights are blinking, they're very visible. People don't seem to recognize them. So that's not really working. I think there's also, we really need to put some speed slowing mechanisms on 34th Street. You're saying it goes all the way up to Tenleytown. I think, there's no commercial businesses on 34th Street. There's only schools and residences. DDOT a couple of years ago when we spoke to them, used the phrase several times, we're going to have to balance. First of all, they said it used to be a lot worse, which is ridiculous response. Secondly, they said we're going to have to balance this safety issue with throughput. And as far as I'm concerned, the only people that should really care about throughput on 34th Street are the people that live up and down it, because this is a residential road. It's turned into a mini highway because traffic on 34th Street, I think during the pandemic, a lot of GPSs started rerouting people up this way, but I really welcome people's suggestions on how we push this forward because it's quite dangerous. The fact that I have a child in my family and I know another kid who have both been struck within the last few months should be enough to get DDOT's attention. We're not letting this go. So I welcome suggestions, but to me, like, what else needs to happen? Does my child actually need to get hospitalized? Does my child need to die to get someone's attention here? This should be enough. And by the way, my wife sent a message to DDOT a couple of years ago, and she was initially raising this when we were concerned about the walk to school. And she actually said, I think my child's going to get hit if this keeps up. So I'll take this to the mayor's office if we have to. We need to get this resolved before somebody actually dies.
So I actually have been in touch with the mayor's office about this. Kendall, who I mentioned before, was recently promoted to the head of the mayor's office, assistant head of the mayor's office on community affairs. So I've actually discussed this at length with her, so she could get it to the right person at DDOT. I've also been in touch with Courtney Carlson, who's the chair of 3F, and as we noted, Commissioner Bowers is here from 3A. So the conversation that I had with Courtney is that we're going to pass our letter, next week. Sorry, I'm blanking on the date. Our letter is a little more specific to the 3C issues, but Courtney and I and Isaac, we'd love if 3A would join, and we're going to reach out to 3E. We're hoping to pass like a joint ANC letter basically asking DDOT, like, we need to deal with this and we need to deal with it now. I know Councilmember Fruman has been on this issue and then off this issue and then back on it again, but for the most part, he's been on the issue. Um, the hard part is unfortunately getting DDOT to do anything. But I appreciate your advocacy. I mean, it's a terrible situation, and I'm very sorry that your child got hit on his way to school. It's absolutely terrible. It's not something that should be happening in our community. It's not something that should be happening in any community. But we definitely need to push DDOT to listen to us for a change.
To me, the fundamental thing that needs to change is the traffic actually needs to slow down. 34th Street, it's just too fast. The posted speed limit is 25 miles an hour, and it's way faster than that. People treat it like a highway. I think if we can actually slow the traffic down and enforce people to obey the speed limit, less people will use it.
Well, I'm going to bring up Commissioner Paggett's favorite innuendo here is that the speed limit on Connecticut is 25 miles per hour as well. And there have been a number of accidents on Connecticut Avenue that have resulted in death, which should not be happening if you're driving 25 miles per hour. And with that, Commissioner Paggett's.
Yeah. Hi. Sorry, me again. The irony is not lost on me, where we just had a number of people want to get safe route to school infrastructure uninstalled, and fighting for the infrastructure in another locale to be installed. In this very same meeting, not lost on me. And to your first of all, I probably should have started this. I'm very sorry for what happened to your child and the other children that in that area. that is incredibly unfortunate. And I think you heard me say this should not be a matter of producing a body count before things get done. And I get sick of saying that because it just seems like that is what almost needs to happen and should not be the prerequisite, you know? So I'm with you with your advocacy. I will do anything in my power to help the folks that I know over there in the DDOT office with the Safe Routes to School program to get this done and get attention on it. Because I think those flags are silly. I was about 3 hours ago almost hit in the intersection at the zoo where somebody just rolled through the zoo crosswalk. Like the light was red. She clearly was not paying attention while operating her motor vehicle and almost killed me. So I've been fighting for more infrastructure there. I don't care if it's flex posts. I prefer giant bollards or like just like car crushing machines that if you violate that red light, this is a zero tolerance zone. And it's frustrating. I don't know that it needs to be this way, but it's also challenging for DDOT because as you just heard the previous cases there, they get yelled at a lot when people get upset that they've installed the things. So they're trying to make this balance of like, we're going by the playbook of this because there's a lot of streets. I get told this frequently when I go to other DC government offices and ask for things. They're like, there's a lot of streets in the city, Janelle. It's not the only one. Which, sure. And that's why they try to abide by these standards and maybe a little too stringently than they should. And that's why some stuff gets overdone and some stuff doesn't get done.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know. I don't have a solution, which I hate when I say things and I don't have an idea already. But I just wanted to put that out there. But we in getting the other ANCs on board are trying to beat the drum and make the thing happen.
I mean, if I can sort of follow up on that, I mean, these are all quite fair points. And, this ANC, as Adam pointed out, has at least since 2023, actually before, been pushing DDOT to take a whole look at the stretch of 34th Street in our ANC. And, with two other ANCs at least joining the bandwagon, this will be a big assist. The fact is that the common thread that we hear tonight, whether it's removal of some flex posts that were put in without notice or other restrictions or action, is that the community wants, focus and thoughtful analysis and community engagement by DDOT to try to find solutions. And, here we have a child who was hit, Mr. Serrano's son, fortunately not hospitalized, and this was at an intersection, a signalized intersection. And the problems on 34th Street, as we pointed out, go beyond the intersections. I mean, I think one of the most dangerous places, as we pointed out to the council member, is on 34th Street north of Porter Street and near Rodman, where the sidewalk is 3 feet wide, punctuated by traffic signs so that it's difficult for someone with a stroller or, let alone a wheelchair to get by. And there's no tree box. There is zero buffer between where someone walks on a sidewalk and where fast-moving traffic on a curve goes along. And so, I've seen drivers use the center turn lane, which is a very unusual feature. Few roads in the city have it as a bypass, passing lane for slower moving traffic. There have to be some structural solutions, whether it's narrowing crosswalks in places, additional things like speed tables, having turn lanes at the, most used intersections perhaps, but otherwise giving up the space to either add buffers or narrowed crosswalks or something that will um, slow traffic. And we see on that street, and I hate to use the word corridor. It appears a lot because that's how DDOT thinks of it, a corridor for throughput. This is neighborhood street, where people live and people go to school and other institutions. And DDOT needs to start thinking about it that way too. But if you look at that whole area, I mean, south of toward Garfield Street, and then north of, I think it's Brandywine or something, where you don't have the center turn lane, the traffic does move at a more stately pace. Drivers don't tend to use it as a median. So I've talked too long. We can't be too prescriptive. All we want is DDOT's focus after, 2.5 years. We've been promised a study this year, and it should happen, and it's got to involve, now hopefully several ANCs to get action.
Elizabeth, before I turn to you, I just want to say something quickly, and then Commissioner Bowers wants to speak. I just did a very quick search on our website, and the ANC3C's first resolution on Reno Road was 2021, which has been a while. But I am going to turn to Isaac.
Well, thank you. First, Bob, I know we got a chance to talk a little while ago. Again, I extend my gratitude that your child was not injured, but also that I share your pain and frustration. We have two young children ourselves. We used to live on Reno Road, right next to Rodman, where it curves around. I must have seen in the 3 or 4 years we were living there about 7 pretty significant accidents, including one where a car was speeding around that corner and ran off the road and hit a pedestrian who was just standing on the sidewalk. I know it's every parent's fear that their child will be hurt or injured or worse in one of these situations. So I want to thank you for continuing the fight on this, and also the ANC commission here and the committee for your leadership on this. Certainly more than happy to work with ANC3C on behalf of ANC3A to put as much pressure as we can on DDOT, on the mayor's office, on any of our elected officials to make some change here. I wholeheartedly agree that the biggest thing we need to do is stop thinking of it as, a minor tributary to Connecticut Avenue, where people effectively can go as fast as they feel comfortable and safe doing. It just becomes more and more dangerous all the time. With that, one thing I've mulled over is either traffic lights like they have, I believe, on Porter, where if somebody goes above the posted speed limit or 5 miles above it, it will trigger the traffic light and slow down traffic. Or maybe even putting an array of speed cameras along there. When I was working at the Cleveland Park Community Association and living on Reno Road, I'd requested putting in a speed camera at the intersection on Porter and Reno, and they did it. And I think it had a brief effect, but then they took it away and it left. So I know that not everybody likes traffic cameras, speed cameras, but I think people would learn pretty quickly to obey the posted speed limit if they started getting tickets about it. So in any case, I think above all else, putting these resolutions forward, continuing to make our voices heard, to make sure that DDOT has to respond and come up with some creative solutions is the way to go. And I certainly encourage anybody here who can think of anything we can do on the ANCs to let me know as well. Be happy to participate.
Thank you. Elizabeth?
I fully support everything. I just wanted to say that I think that as we move forward, what I'm hearing from tonight's meeting is that there really seems to be a failure of communication. And, Marion and Doug both are upset, rightly so, that they were not given any opportunity to learn about and to give any input to changes that happened in their neighborhood. I think that I work with the Cleveland Park Community Association, and DDOT has been remarkably unresponsive. But I also wanted to say that I think that we need some short-term solutions while this is all unfolding, because I think DDOT has the feedback we've gotten is they're talking about 2027 and very long-term solutions. And in the meanwhile, it remains unsafe for children and other pedestrians just using those sidewalks. We have a new captain who's in charge of PSA 203, which is where Cleveland Park is and where John Eaton is. And his name is Captain Hamlin. And I went and met with him and Captain Haskis last week to ask for the very same things. And I think as these conversations go forward, they could be included, but they both were going to go and have a look at the immediate area and set up a series of days where speeding tickets were going to be given out in the next couple of weeks. So Captain Hamlin is new. Any of you who live in the neighborhood, write him. His email is available. Go talk to him. Go introduce yourselves, share what's going on. But he was really receptive and he wanted to learn about it. So he was going out with Captain Haskis to have a tour and learn for himself what was going on. And then hopefully they're going to set up some actions in the next couple of weeks it won't fix everything very long term, but perhaps it will have a small impact short term while longer term solutions are being generated. So good
Commissioner
luck to
Prince,
all.
Oh, go ahead.
I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
I've forgotten how to raise my hand officially with the little icon there. I just want to say, Mr. Serrano and your wife, I'm terribly sorry for what happened, and I do hope we get this resolved. There's the 34th Street, and particularly this stretch, is incredibly dangerous, and I see it on a daily basis. Or drivers are going too fast, and kids are trying to cross the street, and that sort of thing. And I do think it is time for DDOT to engage and get this resolved. And I would say, I've also one of my sons was also hit by a car by a hit and run driver, and fortunately he was okay. And I just want to comment back about the perceived irony of sort of a difference of what's being said between the various commenters, because I do want to make it clear that our number one issue is safety of the kids. And it's a question of coming up with what's the most safe solution. Because what's happened in our situation is routing more traffic onto Macomb Street may actually end up making things less safe. And the question and also DDOT went beyond what safe routes to school said. So just to be clear, safety is paramount for what we want to have done. And I think that's also what I heard from the previous speaker about the Oyster area. But it's really not safety versus not safety, or safety versus convenience. It's also a question of, will DDOT engage with the community in the correct way to make these streets safer for everyone around Porter, around Ordway, around Macomb, around Lowell, and get it resolved? And they're not even here to. So we're all talking to the wind.
Very fair. On DDOT not being here, the invitation was extended, it was accepted, and then it was unceremoniously withdrawn on their end. But if anybody has anything else that they would like to add on this, I do have a couple things to say, but I will hold if anybody has anything else they would like to add. Okay. Oh,
Sorry.
sorry. Go ahead, Janelle.
I also apparently have lost my ability to raise and lower hand.
I think they moved it.
That of rerouting traffic to other streets, that tends to also make that traffic slower on those streets. Like the free-for-alls that people experience on streets that aren't congested, people will go as fast as they want and can, and they do. So I, the argument of like, if you change a pattern here, it's going to make it congested here. And to the points about that other people were making about like DDOT's only concerned about throughput. Yeah, they are sometimes, but the follow-on effects of like just by having that congestion and slowing people down on streets is effectively a safety measure. Um, so I just made it like physics is the thing of like space, place, and speed.
I don't know, it cut out there for a second there. All right, so I just want to say quickly, thank you to everybody who came to talk about this. Bob and I don't want to mispronounce your name. I think it's Neha. Perfect.
That's right.
I hope the two of you will stay engaged. I will have a draft that I can send to you, Isaac, that I will also circulate with Courtney Carlson. And I'll send a copy to you two as well, so we could get our heads together for maybe a joint ANC letter in February. Just the turnaround time didn't work for various ANCs with our 7-day notice requirement. And I think 3F might have already met or is meeting this week. So I will get that out. But in the meantime, our letter is out there. If anybody has any comments on it, would love them between now and next Tuesday. And hopefully we can beat the drum loud enough that DDOT finally listens to us.
We're
And
happy to
Janelle
help, Adam. Thank you.
put Captain Hamlin's email in the chat. So if anybody doesn't have anything else on that, I will move to our last. And thank you, Isaac, for coming today as well.
Pleasure. Thank you for the invite. And I'm sorry I have to leave to get my kids to bed, but
no
appreciate
problem.
your leadership, Adam, and all of you on the committee here.
Thank you.
And with that, I'm going to move on to the last thing. Again, unfortunately, DDOT didn't want to come to talk about it. But it is the sidewalk on 29th Street in Woodley Park between, I guess that's Cathedral and Garfield Woodley. I have heard a lot about it from a lot of people in my SMD that are actually shockingly not in support of it, mainly because they like to bring their dogs there and walk them. I am one of the people that is guilty of bringing their dogs there to walk them. But it is a very nice grassy patch of land, which is not very heavily trafficked. So it is a great place to bring your dog. DDOT has a proposal to pave that section between Cathedral and John, can correct me if I'm wrong, Cathedral and Garfield and Woodley.
Correct.
Pave it and continue a sidewalk that essentially goes nowhere. But would love people's thoughts on it. I have heard from two other people about it, just very like upset that they would lose the space to walk their dog in peace and not have to worry about like heavy traffic on Connecticut and all that.
I mean, it's dog walkers, of course, but it's also kids who play ball there. I mean, my two sons, whatever the seasonal ball was, they were out there on the green space, playing. So I know that you're into dog walking, but it is used by other people for other purposes. And
yeah, no, yeah.
And the main thing is the sidewalk would serve no purpose whatsoever. There are no homes there. Nobody's going to come out of their front doors and go to this sidewalk. The sidewalk does not, if they build one there, it's not going to connect to the next block to the south because there is no sidewalk there. So it's just a sidewalk to nowhere that eats into green space. And in theory, the city has a a policy to promote green space, not to pave it over. So,
And then I will just say that it would connect on the other side. It doesn't connect to a sidewalk. I don't think that there's any possibility that a sidewalk could be built there just because it is extremely steep and doesn't really flatten out for that purpose. But I will turn to Janelle. You're muted, Janelle.
No,
Oh,
sorry, I was looking at the Google map. Um, there, I thought this was going to be in front, the sidewalk was in front of a bus stop.
no,
no.
It doesn't go up to the bus stop?
The
there
bus
is
stop has the sidewalk already.
Oh,
this.
but then the sidewalk stops at the bus stop, right? I remember being stranded at the bus stop.
Well, there's two
There
bus
is a
stops.
sidewalk at the bus stop on the north end of the street. What they're talking about is going south from that all the way down along the side of the Swiss Embassy.
But the point though, and this is where the city makes a case, is that the sidewalk connects two bus stops. There's a bus stop at Garfield and a bus stop at Cathedral.
Why would anybody walk from one bus stop to the other bus stop, Gavin?
But you're not walking from bus stop to bus stop. It's the people walking to the bus stop.
Who's going to walk to the bus stop? I live at the bottom of the hill. I'm not going to walk up the hill to the bus stop when I have a bus stop right across the street.
I let me just say, so the sidewalk on 29th Street, it curves from, I guess that's oddly, isn't that Woodley Road in front of
It's
Murray?
Woodley. At that point, it's Woodley, yeah.
Woodley and then Woodley at the south too. It's very confusing.
Yeah.
So it curves from Woodley by the Swiss Embassy and then it abruptly ends. And then it picks up again as you hit Garfield and goes from Garfield to that intersection with also Woodley Road, ironically. And then there's green space in the middle where there's no homes, it's just a fence and like 6 or 8 feet of grass. But there is like a sidewalk for the bus to stop and people to get on and off the bus. And if like you needed to get to the bus, like there's no unobstructed way that you couldn't walk to the like if you're walking to either or bus stop, there is a way, like unless you're crossing in the middle of the street to nowhere, like you have a sidewalk to get to the bus stop.
Right.
If that makes sense. I don't know if I explained it correctly.
Fair, but like, what if a kid is getting off at that stop? There's no crosswalk
Yes,
there.
No, there's a crosswalk at both.
Where?
at both ends, at both
Yeah.
ends of 29th Street.
There's a crosswalk at 29th and Garfield to take you back towards like the Wardman Park area. And then there's a crosswalk at 29th Street and Cathedral to take you towards the zoo and Connecticut Avenue.
I don't see a crosswalk.
They're there. And even if they weren't, you're not, if you want to go from there to the zoo, you're not going to want to walk all the way down the hill to cross the street and walk over and then walk back up to the zoo. You're just going to cross the street.
Hang on, I'm gonna share my screen.
Also, how big is the sidewalk they're proposing? Like 20 feet?
You do 6 feet wide.
Can you see this screen? Let me get rid of this. Oh, hold on. Can you see my screen?
Yes.
Now I can.
So this is Garfield, Woodley. This is the crosswalk, and then the sidewalk ends. I don't know if you can see my mouse, but it ends like here. And then if you go up, there's a crosswalk here. The sidewalk ends here by this tree, like right where the building ends. It gives enough space for the bus to pull in and out. So I would say from this building, from the end of this building to the start of this building, there's no sidewalk, but there's also nothing there. Like it's just green space.
And, and there is some history on this. Back in the aughts, um, DDOT came up with a proposal to put a sidewalk in and actually started to build it, which is why there is the sidewalk at the north end of the street. And the neighbors heard about it, thought it was dumb to build a sidewalk in front of the Swiss embassy in the green space, got in touch with the head of DDOT, who was then Gabe Klein, who apparently concluded this was a dumb idea and stopped the work. So there isn't any more reason now to have a sidewalk there than there was before. In fact, there's probably less reason now because of the city's policy on green space and permeability and all of that kind of stuff that was not in place back then. So.
So I'm going to, it's like, again, very hard because DDOT chose not to come and answer questions. Um, I am going to see if I can get an answer or a more straight answer from DDOT about this and why they want to put it there and stuff like that. I understand like the thought of connecting the bus stops, but I feel like it's like there's enough sidewalk there for the bus to pull in and out and for people to stand there and wait for the bus and all of that. I really don't like no one's gonna walk like you would if you were gonna go north, you would just cross the street and go north because it's not like there's anything there for you to get to. But I would like to hear from them as to like why and who and what are they proposing and for what purpose.
Adam,
If
I have some context on this. I did talk to DDOT about this
okay.
already, and I'm happy to either talk to you offline or tell you. But I think that in there, so I got there. There's no official decision, although I do think that they're going to propose to do this, and the, uh, the strongest thing that they said was that it connects these two bus stops, which uh, as, I kind of agree with John that there isn't really a use case between these two bus stops for pedestrians because there just isn't really traffic. There is a user trail on the grass, so people are walking up and down, and but the other objection, just to note it, is the neighbors who are on the corner who are going to lose a bunch of trees that are going to get cut down for the sidewalk, which is a shame. Although it's not their property, but it would be a shame to cut down a bunch of trees. That might happen in any case because I think they're going to open up space for the bus stop probably in any case. So it's a shame to cut down those trees though.
There'll be other trees up and down the street that'll be damaged as well because there was no sidewalk. There hasn't been. DDOT has been planting trees not in what would normally be a tree box. They've been planting them like 8 feet back from the curb.
Mm-hmm.
So, and some of these trees, for some reason, are not planted very deeply. So there are roots well above ground on a couple of big trees, and I don't see how those trees are going to survive a sidewalk being cut through their roots. But and they just planted a new tree out here this past week, which is also not in the tree box area. So obviously the urban forestry side of DDOT's not talking to the sidewalk planning side. So
Yeah. I will say like, Godwin, you mentioned that people are using it. I mean, people do use it, but it's whether people use it as green space or if people use it as a walking path, because it could have, those markings for both.
Hmm.
And if people are using it as a walking path, it kind of suggests to me that they don't feel they need a sidewalk. They're perfectly happy to walk on the earth. Maybe that's easier on their knees. I don't know. Uh, yeah, but they're just, they're fine with it as it is. And if anybody feels, safer on the sidewalk, they just go across the street to the sidewalk.
I'm sorry, can somebody please like link me to the plans for
I
this?
can, I might have them in my email, so I can send them to you.
Because I have not seen them. Um,
You have plan? I don't think I have anything.
I
I
don't think
do.
they have plans.
people are just
Yeah.
saying that people
Oh,
are saying stuff. So
Well,
without
because
seeing the
we've
plan,
had
I
we've
don't know
had
how. I
we've
don't.
had email back and forth with with DDOT, and this is what they've told us. They haven't
Okay,
come out with any plans yet.
then how are we expected to react to hearsay?
No, this is not hearsay. This is what DDOT has told you.
I I have not been told any of this.
I'll be happy to forward the emails to you, Janelle.
Yeah, I mean they've knocked on the doors in the neighborhood, and I did have a
Well, they didn't get in my building, so
well, they knocked on the doors in like along 29th Street,
Mhm.
uh, John's doors and the neighbors and so forth. But I only heard about it from John and from some other neighbors.
okay. I mean, with the bus stop being there, I think that sidewalk, as I was stranded there for a while, wondering where I was, why. I think it's only 3 feet, so I don't know why they'd be proposing 6 feet. It's a fairly low traffic area, but there's also like I struggle to get on the bus to go over from the sidewalk to like there's also not a path cut for the bus stop for a sidewalk. So people in wheelchairs or with mobility issues, mobility devices and stuff kind of would be or stranded there. So maybe there's something that they're seeing in a demographic of that neighborhood that like they're more aware of that others aren't aware of, or the people using the bus. Um, like for example, if I were going across town and I was deposited there, maybe I had some business to do in Woodley Park. I'm not going to the bus stop necessarily, but I'm walking through the backside of the neighborhood to do my things. And if I have a walker or wheelchair, like my desired path is that walkway. And now I'm stranded because the bus has marooned me, being dropped off over on that side of the street. I have to go back up the hill to the crosswalk to cross to get to the curb cut to go back down the hill on the other side of that doesn't seem fair.
But to build a new sidewalk for that one person who might have that, you'll be dropped there every couple of years, seems like a waste of money to me. And I think there are, other things, that DDOT could be doing with, its limited budget, like, fixing the things that either, we're talking about for the last hour and a half, um, and not building a sidewalk that nobody on that block wants.
okay. I think for us next steps is either John or I can search through my email and find the stuff from DDOT sent to Janelle. Maybe what we
Send
could
it to
do is reach out to DDOT and see. I have to think. I mean, we could ask them like where they're at in this process. I mean, if they haven't issued like any formal plans or any like an NOI or an NOI like thing, there's nothing really for us to like react to, quote unquote. So maybe we ask them like, are you still considering this site? Like not in a formal way. Maybe like either, Gowan or I can email them and see what they say and then go from there. I mean, I'm open to other people's.
Yeah, the last email I have from them says, "Thank you for your response and comments. DDOT will keep you informed throughout the process." This was dated November 19th.
Okay. Um, I mean, I'm open to other people's advice and opinions, but maybe that's my thought is to see like where they are in the process. And then go from there. Because I don't want to prematurely issue like I like send them a letter and say like we don't really want this sidewalk, and they've already moved on from the sidewalk. Because that wouldn't be a great look for us. But um,
I guess we can ask them if they are still you're
yeah,
planning to do it. And if they say no, we've dropped it, then we'll come back in 20 years and some other group on this conference call they'll be talking about it again.
yeah. Maybe that's probably the best way to do that. I'm trying to think. That's that's all I can think about right now.
The sidewalk connection plan is like a capital, like 15 or 20-year plan. So again, without knowing where it is on
Right.
the not being shown the plans, like it's hard to like are you trying to get it removed permanently from the plan, or is this like a near term thing? I'm just
I
like
don't think they're,
it's speculative at this point.
no, they have told us they are planning to do it this year.
Yeah, I mean, they said they hadn't finalized their work plan, but that they thought this was on their list. They also have a system with different criteria for how to do it. And I was trying to remember our discussion around sidewalks. I think there was a discussion with like last year or the year before about Newark Street and the sidewalks there. And there's a section that doesn't have sidewalk, I think on Newark, or maybe and I was asking them like because the arguably those might be a bigger priority for our ANC. So I didn't have those facts at hand, but it could be where we might want to notify to them that there are other sidewalks that might be a higher priority than this one for our ANC.
Yeah, not a bad idea.
Although I feel like I recall this conversation about Newark Street as well, and the undergrounding of the power lines
Hmm.
is driving more of that bus on that street, where when they go to underground the power lines, that's when they'll install sidewalks where they are not, because
Hmm.
they're obviously digging up
This street.
stuff
This
to, and then it makes more sense to follow that and put the sidewalk up there.
Hmm.
Um, this I think is probably driven more by the the bus situation and how the bus stop is just dropping somebody off on an island. And I feel like there's probably different budget buckets for those.
Hmm. There might be. I'm not sure about that. Yeah,
Again,
actually,
there's
this
a lot
was
of streets in the city.
yeah. Well, I think as I recall, this was about connectivity. Like you're right that uh, things that were dis unconnected or spots where sidewalks weren't connected. That was whatever this program is to like fix the network, like where there are gaps in the sidewalk network
Yeah.
to fill in those gaps. Yeah.
Which is trying to connect like the high priority or high frequency bus route network,
Mhm.
right? And then the other bit was defined by when they're undergrounding the power lines, and that is driving that sidewalk program. Because usually where the power lines are above ground, it's like less of that high transit network. Those two things aren't
Mhm.
like the Venn diagram, the middle is small.
Okay.
Okay. All right. So I think we'll do that for next steps is either I or Gowan can reach out and see where they are on that, and then we can discuss what else the ANC wants to do on that, um, and see where we can go from there. I know we covered a lot today, so if there's anything else, this is the last thing on the agenda. I thought this sidewalk was, but any other business. So if anybody has any other concerns that they would like to raise before I adjourn this meeting,
I do have one.
yes, Godwin.
Uh, I'm sorry to bring it up here, and I don't think it's something we can take any action on, but there was this strategic bikeways process that the DDOT was doing, and they had some sort of meetings. I think they had one in Van Ness in December or November, and we've been invited to comment on it or comment on sort of within our community what would be see as the strategic bikeway priority. My default is that our standing position is that bike lanes on Connecticut Avenue is probably the highest priority, but also if there's other sort of cycling priorities or bikeway priorities within our neighborhood, we could try to communicate them. I don't think we can do that in this. Obviously, it's coming up at the last minute, but it's something to have in mind, maybe for the future.
Yeah, no, we can schedule a February meeting to talk about that too. I know I got some comments, and I'm sure some other commissioners have gotten some comments about 34th Street of putting an unbroken, you know, what is it, protected bike lane on 34th Street because it would help slow people down and make drivers feel a little more cautious when driving. So I do agree Connecticut Avenue, but there could be other sorry, I can't function tonight. Other options in our ANC. All right. Gowan, you're muted.
I'll let's bring it back up at a
Yeah.
future meeting.
All right. As long as nobody else has anything else, I am going to adjourn this meeting and thank you all for attending. Bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.